What is primary amenorrhea? What is amenorrhea itself? Amenorrhea is absence of menstruation in a woman. Now, what is primary amenorrhea? When the woman has not menstruated before and now there is no attainment of menarche. That is primary amenorrhea. And secondary amenorrhea is a woman who has menstruated previously but now she is not menstruating. So, amenorrhea is absence of menstruation. What are the causes? It may be a physiological condition or pathological condition. See, in various situations in life, various periods in life in a woman, there is physiological amenorrhea. For example, before puberty, before the girl attains menarche, the girl is amenorrheic. There is no menstruation. Then again during pregnancy and during lactation, there is amenorrhea. Because here in pregnancy, she is carrying another baby in the uterus and so there is no ovulation. Similarly, during lactation, because prolactin is secreted high amounts, it also suppresses the pituitary secretion of gonadotropins, so there is no ovulation and so there is amenorrhea. Then after menopause, what happens in the ovaries after menopause? All the follicles, that is the Graafian follicles which were available previously, have all been exhausted. See, throughout the reproductive age, every month, many follicles go on developing, and out of them, only one follicle becomes dominant and releases the ovum. So, a girl who is born with millions of Graafian follicles, by the time the woman reaches menopause, all the Graafian follicles are exhausted in the ovary. So, there is no more development of Graafian follicles, no more ovulation. So, there is no menstruation, and this physiological condition we call it as menopause. So, in these physiological situations, there is amenorrhea. Apart from that, amenorrhea may be because of associated pathological conditions. Now, if it is pathological condition, you have to find out the cause and treat the cause, because this may be a manifestation of some bigger disease, some greater disease which needs treatment. So, what are all the factors? Uh, Genetic factors may be there, where chromosomal abnormalities may be there, or gene abnormalities may be there, gene mutations may be there, or systemic diseases may be there, like say renal failure or diabetes, etc. Or it may be a part of general endocrinopathies. Endocrinopathies means endocrine diseases in other endocrine organs, say thyroid disturbances or some adrenal diseases or pituitary tumors. There may be associated amenorrhea. Now, basically what happens in all this is there is disturbance of HPO axis. HPO axis means hypothalamo-pituitary ovarian axis. I told you in detail about HPO axis when I was talking about hormonal contraception. So the hypothalamus releasing hormones which reach the pituitary and stimulate the pituitary to produce gonadotropins. That is, anterior pituitary produces gonadotropins, FSH and LH, follicular stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone. FSH causes development of the Graafian follicle. LH causes ovulation, that is release of the ovum from the follicle. Now, then the Graafian follicle and the subsequent corpus luteum both produce hormones estrogens. So now these estrogens act on the genital organs, on the uterus, cervix, vagina, and so there is development of the endometrium. Now, once at the end of the cycle, when there is no conception, there is a withdrawal of all the hormones. So, negative feedback effect on the pituitary will be there. Then everything falls down, and so there is withdrawal bleeding. This is how the menstrual cycle goes on. So, any disturbance in this HPO axis causes amenorrhea. Then other conditions like gynatresia. Gynatresia means atresia of the genital organs. It may be atresia of the uterus or the cervix or vaginal atresia. All these conditions I'll be talking in detail later. Then some use of some drugs which can suppress the pituitary secretions and or they can affect the ovary, and then we can have amenorrhea. Nutritional factors where, for example, anorexia nervosa, where there is excessive fasting. When the body weight falls down, then estrogen, it becomes an hypoestrogenic condition. Estrogen levels will fall. And so there is no stimulation of the endometrium and no withdrawal bleeding and resulting in amenorrhea. Psychological factors. Psychological factors affect through the hypothalamus. The releasing factors will be affected, and so no pituitary stimulation, no pituitary gonadotropin production, no action on the ovary, so no estrogens and progesterones, and so the end organ, that is the uterus, is not reacting, and there is amenorrhea. So these various factors can affect, these are all the pathological causes for the amenorrhea. Now, we also divide this as primary amenorrhea and secondary amenorrhea. Primary amenorrhea is where there is failure of onset of menstruation beyond the age of 16 years. So, we are taking 16 years as the cutoff to say it is primary amenorrhea. So, we can wait up to 16 years for menstruation to occur. If after 16 years also, regardless of development of secondary sexual characters. See, the secondary sexual characters development makes a difference. If secondary sexual characters means development of the breast, development of the pubic axillary hair, external genitalia, etc. Now, all these are affected by the estrogen. So, if secondary sexual characters are present, it means estrogen production is adequate. That makes a difference for us to pinpoint the cause for the amenorrhea, for the etiology of the amenorrhea. Suppose secondary sexual characters are absent, that means the ovarian production of estrogen itself is deficient. That means it is the ovary itself which is not functioning properly. So you can pinpoint where the defect is. So whether secondary sexual characters are present or they are absent, if the girl does not menstruate after 16 years of age, then we say it is primary amenorrhea. Now, what is secondary amenorrhea? Secondary amenorrhea is where the woman has already menstruated. She has had regular periods for a long time, and then now she is not menstruated for 6 months. So, failure of menstruation for 6 months or longer than that in a woman who previously menstruated. This we call it secondary amenorrhea. So, one of the causes for secondary amenorrhea is pregnancy. So, if you think it is secondary amenorrhea, always rule out pregnancy first. Even in an unmarried woman, if secondary amenorrhea is there, then you must rule out pregnancy. So, of course, pregnancy is a physiological condition. There may be other pathological conditions which are causing secondary amenorrhea. So, that is a classification. Now, let us go into the etiology of amenorrheas. How do we classify these amenorrheas? We classify these amenorrheas according to the serum FSH levels, that is follicular stimulating hormone levels. I told you FSH is secreted by the, released by the anterior pituitary. Now, in condition, it is very easy to classify based on serum FSH levels. Now, there are other methods of classification also, phenotypic sex, genotypic sex, etc. They are all a little complicated for you. This is the easiest way to understand the etiological factors. So, according to the serum FSH levels, where we classify into 3, where it may be a normal FSH levels, or the FSH levels may be higher than normal, or FSH levels may be lower than normal. So accordingly, we call it a hypergonadotropic condition, eugonadotropic, or hypogonadotropic condition. Now, hypergonadotropic condition is where the FSH levels are elevated. If the serum values are more than 40 milli international units per ml, then we consider that as high FSH levels. So when the values are more than 40, then we say it is hypergonadotropic condition. Now, eugonadotropic is where serum levels are normal. Hypogonadotropic condition is where low FSH levels are there. Actually, it is less than 5 milli international units, not 40, 5 milli international units. So between 5 and 40, we consider as normal, that is eugonadotropic. So less than 5 milli international units is hypogonadotropic amenorrhea. So you've got hyper, eugonadotropic, and hypogonadotropic amenorrheas. And in these 3 groups, there are various conditions which meet this requirement of FSH levels. So all that classification further classified, each group is further classified again based on the etiology. So what are all the hypergonadotropic amenorrheic conditions? This is where the pituitary gonadotropin is being produced excessively. FSH is being produced excessively. That means, what does it mean if FSH is excess? That means pituitary is functioning normally. Pituitary stimulation by the hypothalamus is normal. That means hypothalamus is releasing the releasing factors, what we call GnRH, gonadotropin releasing hormone. So GnRH is being produced normally by the hypothalamus. Pituitary is responding to it and producing FSH, but it is producing excessive amount. Now, why this excessive amount is there? Normally in the HPO axis, what happens? At the beginning of the menstrual cycle, GnRH is released, that stimulates the pituitary, FSH is released. This FSH then acts on the ovary, ovarian Graafian follicle development starts. Now the Graafian follicle produces estrogens. Now when these estrogens levels rise, they have a negative feedback effect on the hypothalamus and pituitary. That means if the serum levels of estrogens are increasing, that will suppress the pituitary and that is a hypothalamic GnRH release as well as pituitary FSH release. So in these conditions, hypergonadotropic amenorrhea, it means that though the pituitary is responding, the negative feedback effect by estrogen is not there. Because estrogen levels are very low, there is no negative effect on the hypothalamus and pituitary. So these hormones are being produced excessively. So what does it mean? The defect must be in the ovarian functioning. Understand? So by knowing about these various hormones, you can pinpoint where the defect could be. So this hypergonadotropic amenorrhea, we divide into two groups. Group A is where the sex chromosomes are abnormal, and group B is where the sex chromosomes are normal but the ovary is abnormal. Understand? So what are these sex chromosomes? You know, a human being normally has what we say they depict as 46XX or 46XY. That means there are 44 autosomes, that is, which are responsible for the genes for the various somatic features. Okay, 44 autosomes and 2 sex chromosomes in every person. Now, in a female person, the 2 sex chromosomes are X chromosomes. Both the chromosomes are same, XX chromosomes. In a male person, the sex chromosomes are, one is an X chromosome, other is a Y chromosome. Okay, you know these chromosomes appear as pairs. So if you are talking in pairs, we must say there are 22 pairs of autosomes and 1 pair of sex chromosomes. Understand? So now in conditions, so we are dividing this hypergonadotropic amenorrhea into two groups. One where abnormal sex chromosomes are there, the other group where normal sex chromosomes are there. So first, what are the conditions where abnormal sex chromosomes are there? This is basically the condition what we call Turner syndrome or gonadal dysgenesis. See, the word dysgenesis is used whenever the gonads are abnormal. Either they are not present or only fibrous tissue is present or they are abnormal. Okay. Dysgenesis means they are developed abnormally. Okay. Gonads. So gonad in the female is the ovary, gonad in the male is the testis. Okay. So in the Turner syndrome, what happens is basically it is an XX sex chromosome should have been present. But during development, for some reason, there is a deletion of one of the X chromosomes. So only one X chromosome is present. So when we express the chromosomal typing of this person, we will say 46X0. That means, actually, no, sorry, not 46, 45X0. This person is having only 45 chromosomes. That is 44 autosomes and one X chromosome. So 45X0 because one X chromosome is absent. So this is depicted as X0. See this condition again I will tell you in detail. So this condition is called Turner syndrome. Person with this condition has other stigmata, other features, which I'll describe later. Now, or in other conditions, it may not be an X0 deletion, but one of the X chromosomes is abnormal. A short arm of the X chromosome may be deleted, etc. Now, or there may be mosaicism. X0 condition only, but mosaicism. Now, what is mosaicism in when we talk about chromosomes? Mosaicism is see when we say abnormal chromosomes in all the cell lines, these abnormal chromosomes will be present. You all know human beings is derived from one zygote, one ovum fertilized by one sperm and one zygote, and that zygote then goes on dividing. First a blastula forms, then first morula and then blastula, and then all the differentiation of the cells and the various organs are developed. So this single chromosome, so the same chromosomal content is carried in all the cells in the body. Now, in mosaicism, what happens is some of the cell lines, abnormal chromosomes will be present, and in some of the cell lines, the chromosomes are normal. This condition we call mosaicism. That is like a mosaic. You know the mosaic flooring on the that used to be there previously. When you put multicolored, no, you call it a mosaic. Multicolored tiles, you call it a mosaic. That means each tile is different. Like that, see, each cell line may be different. So some cell lines will be having normal XX, and some cell lines may be having X0. So this condition we call mosaicism. So abnormal sex chromosomes or mosaicism may be there. So expressed in mosaicism, or other abnormal X chromosomes may be present. So this is the hypergonadotropic amenorrhea. That means here what happens is the ovary is not developed. It is represented only as a fibrous tissue follicles, no estrogen production, so no negative feedback. That is why FSH levels are increased. Okay. Now, in the second group, where normal sex chromosomes are present, where you can express it as 46XX or 46XY. That means 46XX where female sex chromosomes are present, 46XY where male sex chromosomes are present. But here, what happens is the gonads are abnormal. We do not know exactly why this occurs, but gonads are either absent or they are present only as fibrous tissue. No Graafian follicles are present. If it is a female, that is XX chromosomes, ovary is not is abnormal. Or if it is XY chromosomes are present, then the testis does not show any sperms development. Seminiferous tubules are absent, no sperm development is there. So basically this may be an XX or XY. That means here, if it is XX, if ovary was present, this person would have been a complete female. If the chromosome component is 46 XY, if testis was present normally, then this person would have been a complete female. But here, because the gonads are abnormal, the sex features, that is what we call a phenotypic features, the external features of a person, we call it as phenotypic sex. See, a female sex is expressed when breast development is there, axillary pubic hair are there, and external genitalia resemble the female. And we call it a male phenotype when there's no breast development, hoarseness of voice is there, and there is scrotum and penis development. Then we call it a phenotypic male. So here the phenotypic expression will be absent because uh, estrogen is not present, or testosterone is not present, or testosterone is not functioning normally. Okay, so here the sex chromosomes are normal, but the abnormality is in the gonad itself. So various conditions under this group are 46XX, where it is a pure gonadal dysgenesis, female type, pure gonadal dysgenesis. If you do the karyotyping in this person, it will be 46XX karyotype. But because the ovaries are absent, non-functioning, then the estrogen is not produced. So, though externally resembles to some extent a female, the full development of the female sexual characteristics will not be present. Now, then the second group is the 46 XY gonadal dysgenesis. Here there are two conditions. One is the Swyer syndrome, other is the testicular feminizing syndrome. Now, in Swyer syndrome, the gonad itself is absent. Testis itself is completely absent. So there is absolutely no production of testosterone. So the male sexual characteristics are not present. Male secondary sexual characteristics like scrotum and penis are absent. Then there is a testicular feminizing syndrome where though gonad is present, though testosterone is produced, testosterone is not acting on the cells in the body because the cells, there are no receptors in the cells, that is in the ultimate cell on which the testosterone has to act. So again here, the male development of secondary sexual characters are absent. And this resembles again a female and brought up as a female. Okay. See, one thing you must all know is that to have male secondary sexual characteristics, that is to be a phenotypic male, it is very essential that testosterone, a functioning testosterone, should be produced in the body. Then only the male secondary sexual characters will be expressed. Suppose the testosterone is absent, whether estrogen is present or not, it resembles, the external features will resemble a female type only. So a neutral sex means usually there may be a resemblance to the female phenotype. Remember that. Yes. And then in this group where normal sex chromosomes are present, the third one is the gonadotropin resistant syndrome. We also call this a Savage syndrome. Here, what happens is ovary is present, but ovary is not responding to the gonadotropin. FSH is unable to act on the ovary because the receptors for FSH are absent in the ovary. So ovary is not responding. So Graafian follicles, though they are present, ova are present, but there is no development of a Graafian follicle, no formation of estrogens. So estrogens are deficient again in this. What we call it, the resistance here is in the ovary. Though ovary looks normal, all the anatomical features are there, the histological features are there, but there is no response to the pituitary gonadotropin. Okay, so basically these are the two groups in the hypergonadotropic amenorrhea. Now, in the eugonadotropic amenorrhea, where the FSH is normal. Now, what does it mean if FSH is normal? That means the hypothalamus producing the GnRH normally. That is acting on the pituitary. Pituitary is producing FSH normally. Then this FHS is acting on the ovary, and ovary follicle development is occurring. Ovarian estrogens are being produced. Why? Because how are we sure estrogens are being produced? Because there is negative feedback effect. FSH levels are not high, they are normal. That means ovarian estrogen production is also normal. Now, why this woman is not menstruating? That is because the end organ is not responding. What is the end organ? End organ is the endometrium in the uterus. See, in each menstrual cycle, endometrium has to develop, and then when the withdrawal of the hormones occurs, then it has to bleed, isn't it? Endometrium has to be shed off, and the bleeding will occur, which we call menstruation. So that means here the hypothalamus is normal, pituitary is normal, ovary is normal, but the end organ is not responding. That means the uterus is not responding. Some abnormality in the endometrium or in the uterus, or the outflow tract block is there. So all the conditions where the uterus and the genital tract is affected come into this group of eugonadotropic amenorrhea. So here estrogen levels are also normal. So here we have got various conditions. One is the where there is complete absence of Mullerian development. See, you all know the uterus, fallopian tubes, uterus, cervix, and upper part of the vagina, upper two-thirds of the vagina. They are developed from which part of the which tube? Mullerian duct. From the Mullerian duct in the fetus, these organs are developed. Whereas in the male genitalia, the male internal genital organs, seminiferous tubules, etc., they are all formed from Wolffian duct. Now, in the male, the testis also produces a hormone called Mullerian inhibiting hormone. This Mullerian inhibitory hormone in the male causes suppression of this Mullerian duct. That is why the uterus, cervix, upper part of the vagina are not developed in the male, because the testis produces the Mullerian inhibitory hormone. In the female, the Wolffian duct is suppressed. Wolffian duct does not develop. Uh, that is why there are no testicular and all the seminiferous tubules, uh, uh, vas deferens, etc. They are absent in the female, whereas Mullerian development occurs in the female. Now, the two Mullerian ducts develop and then they meet in the center, and the intervening septum breaks down, and then it becomes a single cavity. That's why we have two fallopian tubes, but single uterus and single cervix and single vagina. So, here what is happening is congenitally there is a defect and there is absence of Mullerian development. That means Mullerian inhibitory factor is there and Mullerian system is not developing. That is why there are no fallopian tubes, no uterus, no cervix, no upper part of the vagina. And the vagina will be present only because the lowermost part of the vagina origin is different. It develops from the sinovaginal bulb. So only about a very short vagina will be present, just like a dimple. Maybe just 1 centimeter depth of vagina will be present in these people. So because there is no uterus at all, there is no response to the estrogen and there is no menstruation in these people. So what are all the conditions where there is absence of this Mullerian development? One is the androgen insensitivity syndrome, which I also told you in the hypergonadotropic condition. See, in this condition, sometimes the FSH levels may be high, FSH levels may be normal also. Now, this is also called, we call it testicular feminizing syndrome. I will tell you in detail about this condition later. So that is one condition where Mullerian system is not developed. Then the second condition is what we call a Rokitansky-Kuster-Hauser syndrome. This is quite common. This is one of the commonest causes of primary amenorrhea in girls. Now here again there's complete absence of uterus, cervix and upper part of the vagina. So these are the two conditions where complete Mullerian development is absent. Then in conditions where normal Mullerian development is there but there is amenorrhea, these are only temporary conditions. If the primary condition disease is treated, these people can menstruate because it is normal Mullerian system development. Uterus is there, cervix is there, vagina is there. There is no obstruction to the tract. But woman is not menstruating because there is abnormality in the hormonal secretions basically here. So one condition may be a female or a true intersex, where true intersex is where what we call true hermaphroditism, where female, that is ovarian and testicular elements may be present in the same person. It occurs extremely rarely, but a girl brought up as a female because more feminine features are there does not menstruate at menarche, at the time of menarche. Now, then the second condition is polycystic ovary syndrome, where the ovaries are normal but multiple follicles are developing but no follicle reaches complete development. So we call it a polycystic ovarian syndrome. Here, high levels of estrogen and high levels of androgens are also present, and these act on the endometrium. Endometrial hyperplasia also occurs, but then a prolonged amenorrhea may be there. The girl may not bleed for 6 months or even more, and then suddenly when estrogen levels fall, she will start bleeding and she may have menorrhagia also. Yes. Then adrenal diseases, thyroid diseases, because of the abnormalities in the thyroid secretion and adrenal androgen secretions are increased. In these conditions, again, and the endometrium is that withdrawal bleeding is not there because continuous development of the endometrium is there. So in all these conditions, the Mullerian development is normal. Then the third group is cryptomenorrhea. Cryptomenorrhea means hidden menstruation. Crypto means it is hidden. That means Here, menstruation is occurring, but it is hidden inside the genital tract. It is not being revealed outside. Why? Because there is obstruction to the outflow tract. The uterus is responding. Endometrium is normal, uterus is responding. She is bleeding, endometrium is being shed off. She is bleeding, but the blood is collecting in the uterus, cervix, and vagina, or only in the uterus. So, why this is happening? Because this is not coming out. The bleeding is not coming out. Why? Because there is obstruction to the outflow of this bleeding. Right. For example, conditions like imperforate hymen, where the normally in a girl, in the hymen, there is a small opening. There's a small hole in the hymen through which the menstrual blood appears. Now, here in some situations where the hymen is completely closed, that means there is no uh, hole in the hymen, and so the blood collects behind the hymen. So it collects in the vagina, then the cervix, uterus, fallopian tubes. Sometimes this bleeding occurs into the peritoneal cavity also through the tubal ostia, but through the femoral end of the tubes. Yes. Then the other condition where there is a septum in the vagina. In the upper part or in the middle of the vagina, there is a transverse septum. Again, the blood collects behind this. So this is what we call a cryptomenorrhea. Yes, simply opening this hymen or cutting the septum will cause relieve the condition. Okay. Then the third group is where there are diseases which are destroying the endometrium, like for example, a tuberculosis of the genital tract. In tuberculosis of the genital tract, the endometrium is destroyed. It is replaced by the tubercular granulomas. So the whole entire thickness of the endometrium is destroyed. So these people will have amenorrhea because the endometrium is not there to respond. The hormone levels are all normal. Ovary, ovulation, everything is normal, but there is no endometrium to respond. So tuberculous endometritis and some other diseases, yes, that is one group where all the hormones are normal, FSH is normal, but there is no menstruation. So that is about the eugonotropic amenorrhea. Now, conditions of hypogonotropic amenorrhea, where pituitary FSH secretions are very low. That means here the abnormality has to be either in the hypothalamus or in the pituitary. Why? Because the pituitary is not secreting FSH. So the defect has to be in the pituitary. Or if the defect is in the hypothalamus, that means the releasing hormones are not produced, GnRH is not being produced normally, then naturally there is no stimulation of the pituitary. Pituitary may be normal, but it is not being stimulated to produce FSH. So the defect here will be either in the hypothalamus or in the pituitary. So basically you can divide this into hypothalamic causes or pituitary causes. Now hypothalamic causes are where delayed menarche and puberty. That is a constitutional delay. Sometimes the hypothalamus is very slow in starting functioning. It takes a long time for the GnRH to be produced. So here if all investigations show that everything is normal, everything apparently is normal, no other disease etiological factor has been found for the amenorrhea, then you can reassure the parents and ask them to wait for a little more time so that she can have menstruation. So this is only a constitutional delay. Okay. Yes. Then hypothalamic hypogonadism. Here the GnRH production is abnormal. Other releasing factors like which cause release of ACTH or which cause release of TSH releasing factors, all those may be normal. But it is only the GnRH release which is abnormal. That is the pituitary gonadotropin releasing hormone only is abnormal. One of the syndromes is what we call a Kalman syndrome, and this is specific for only GnRH. Or the GnRH secretion may be a part of general other releasing factors are also may be involved, like in some of the syndromes, Cushing syndrome or other syndromes, as a part of the other endocrinological conditions it may be present, but only isolated GnRH releasing hormone is affected in Kalman syndrome. Right. Then psychogenic causes affect the hypothalamic. See, all psychological conditions affect the brain. So even production of hormones. So many things are affected by our psychology. So psychogenic causes, yes, they can affect the pituitary, not pituitary, sorry, hypothalamic production of releasing hormones and cause amenorrhea. Like conditions of acute weight loss, excessive weight loss, condition called anorexia nervosa, where the girl loses excessive weight, or conditions of malnutrition, enough nutrition is not provided. So general asthenia is there, enough estrogens are not produced. So again, this will affect the hypothalamus. So all these causes can affect the hypothalamus, and releasing hormones are not produced. Then you got pituitary causes where pituitary underdevelopment is there. That means here the hypothalamus may be normal, GnRH production may be normal, but it is the pituitary underdevelopment is there. Either pituitary is genetically underdeveloped, may be a part of some chromosomal abnormalities, or may not be a part of chromosomal abnormalities, but basically pituitary is not developed properly. So pituitary function is deficient. So FSH LH production is abnormal. It is less or not produced at all. This forms a part of other syndromes. So other features may be present in these conditions, like a short stature, obesity, genital dystrophy, that is abnormal genitalia. You can't make out which sex the girl or boy is. Then mental retardation may be there, polydactyly may be there. So other features may be there in these conditions. And depending on these features, various syndromes, various names have been given. You need not go into the details of these syndromes. If you know the etiology, yes, then the etiology may be congenitally acquired, like chromosomal abnormalities or genetic abnormalities, and pituitary development is abnormal. Okay, then conditions where pituitary was normal, but now it has become abnormal because the pituitary has been replaced by tumors. Any new growths, any neoplasms in the pituitary naturally will affect the normal functioning of the pituitary. Pituitary FSH will be less. So here, uh, for example, prolactin secreting tumors, any pituitary adenomas, craniopharyngioma, empty sella turcica syndrome, all these conditions can cause hypofunctioning of the pituitary. See, many of these conditions may cause secondary amenorrhea, but sometimes some of these conditions, if they develop at a very young age before the girl attains menarche, they can even cause primary amenorrhea. Yes, then other hypopituitary states, various syndrome, as I told you, syndrome names have been given, like Simmons disease, Chiari-Frommel syndrome, Forbes-Albright syndrome, pineal gland tumor. All these syndromes have some specific features. We need not go into the details of all these conditions. If you know the classification, it is enough. Then the third group is where severe systemic diseases are there. Tuberculosis, syphilis, which affect various organs in the body, they may affect the pituitary also. Then other endocrinal diseases like thyroid and adrenal diseases may affect the functioning of other organs also, or they may affect the functioning of the ovary also. So that's another group. So, so all these are the etiological conditions which can cause amenorrhea, primary amenorrhea. Now, so primary amenorrhea case, how are you going to examine this patient, and then what investigations you will do? We'll talk about today. How will you assess this patient? History and examination go a long way into giving you clues to know the cause for the amenorrhea. Usually, this child is brought by parents, by mother especially, saying she has not attained menarche. Now, particularly if the girl has a sibling, a female sibling, and a younger female sibling, especially who has already attained menarche, then the mother starts worrying about this girl, why she has not attained menarche. Or mother compares herself to the girl, like she may have attained menarche at 13 or 14 years of age, and now she will think, why my daughter is 15 years or 16 years, and still she has not attained menarche. And then she brings her to the gynecologist. So, whenever such a child is brought, then a complete history has to be taken. Uh, History of cyclical abdominal pain. Cyclical abdominal pain means pain every month at the time of menstruation. Okay, this girl has not menstruated, but every month, almost at the same time, same period in the month, she may complain of severe pain abdomen. Why this is? What does this indicate? This tells us that she may be menstruating, but it is not, the blood bleeding is not coming outside because the genital tract is obstructed. So it may be a condition of cryptomenorrhea. Okay, so cyclical abdominal pain gives us a clue that this could be a cryptomenorrhea. Okay, so each feature will tell us, give us clue to think, yes, this could be the reason, could be this in this organ, like that. History of drug intake. See, she may be taking anti-tuberculous drugs, the child may be. So that means she may have suffered from pulmonary tuberculosis, and she may also be having a genital tract tuberculosis, like that. Any other drugs, she may be taking hormones itself, like estrogens, progesterones, or combinations of estrogen, progesterone hormones for a long time, because it was prescribed for her, and she doesn't know the importance of these hormones. And prolonged intake means prolonged amenorrhea may be there, like that. So any other drug she's taking, you must inquire. Then past history of any tuberculosis disease or any thyroid disease. Mumps. Why mumps is important? Because mumps is notorious for affecting genital organs, for the affecting the gonads, particularly in the male. It affects the testis, causing testicular inflammation, orchitis, and in the female, oophorytis. So then that will destroy the uh, follicles and the seminiferous tubules in the respectively in the ovary and the testis. So naturally, development of follicle will not be there, amenorrhea may be there. Yes, then juvenile diabetes, then encephalitis. How does encephalitis affect encephalitis? By affecting the brain, by affecting the hypothalamus and reducing the GnRH secretions. Yes, it can cause amenorrhea. Then history of any previous surgery. Previous surgery, for example, yes, in a young girl, sometimes they may not be forthcoming in telling you about any surgery, but you must probe and really ask, take detailed history. Because suppose, see, some tumors of the ovary was present, say some embryonal tumors for which the ovary was removed, and both ovaries were removed because of malignancy, then she will not be menstruating, isn't it? Because there are no estrogen production. So these may not be common occurrences, but you have to take the history of previous surgery, or previously some hernia repair was done. The hernia may have contained a undescended testis, which may have been removed. So, like that, some previous history of surgery you have to inquire. Then, take detailed history of chronology of development of secondary sexual characters. See, both in the female and the male, there is a sequence of development of the secondary sexual characters. Before the in the female, I will talk about the female. Now, in the female, before the appearance of menstrual bleeding, there is a development of the other characters which starts a few years even before the menarche. Now, for example, development of the axillary hair, pubic hair, development of the breast, this what we call thelarche, adrenarche, etc. So all this, there is a sequence of development, and a few years before only starts. First, breast development starts. This also there is a classification, actually Tanner's classification for the development of secondary sexual organs, what we call in stages. Stage 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 means the ultimate the development of the breast. Initially, only the areola and the nipple is present. Then later, the breast development occurs as a small mound. Then third stage as a secondary mound. Then fourth stage further development, like that. So we need not go into the details, but you can remember Tanner's staging of the development of the secondary sexual character. Similarly, for the pubic hair also, there is a staging. So you must ask, and not only that, the height development, development of excessive weight gain, all this, All the chronology. Chronology means time sequence. How many years before, at what age this development has occurred. All this you must take a detailed history and write it down on charts so that you can evaluate completely and know what is the defect, where is the defect. Yes, then evaluation of growth charts. If the girl was taken regularly to a pediatrician, then pediatricians usually advise some growth charts for this for the children right from the childhood, so to know whether a normal growth is occurring or not. So if they have some growth charts, you can examine them and see if other growth is normal or not. Then height and weight recording you can do. Smell perception particularly you must ask, because in Kallman syndrome there is no perception of smell. Okay. Then family history you must take, particularly about any siblings and whether the siblings are amenorrheic or they have had conditions like testicular feminizing syndrome occurs in siblings. So that history is also important. So you must take the detailed history. Then examine in detail. You take the height and weight ratio, see the stature. Stature means not only the height, the physical appearance of the body, whether the patient is broad or thin or obese or tall or short, everything comes into this stature. Then Tanner evaluation for the maturation status of the secondary sexual characters you will do. Then observe for any genetic stigmata. Stigmata means any abnormal features. Like say, for example, Turner syndrome, some stigmata are present like a webbing of the neck, increased carrying angle of the arms, etc. I will talk about those in detail later. So you look for all these stigmata or observe for endocrine stigmata, like say hirsutism is there or balding of the head is there. So that indicates some excessive androgen production. So these are all the endocrine stigmata you must look for. Or some thyroid dysfunction is there, you look for exophthalmos. So all these are the endocrine stigmata, you look for these features. And then examine and see for any abdominal mass, any tumors, any adrenal tumors or ovarian tumors you must look for. Inguinal hernia presence you examine and you look for any gonad in the inguinal region or palpate the labia and look for any gonad in the labia, because an undescended testis may be present either in the inguinal region or in the labia, and this child may be brought up as a female because there is no scrotal sac. Yes, look for clitoromegaly, that is enlargement of the clitoris, which indicates excessive androgen production. Then look for signs of virilization. Virilization is hoarseness of voice, balding of the hair, hirsutism, abnormal development, and that is male pattern of pubic hair, etc. Then examine for the genitalia, look for the depth of vagina, whether the vagina is normal depth or, say, I told you in Rokitansky Hauser-Kushner syndrome, vagina is present only as a short dimple. Then, or it may be an imperforate hymen case, and so the hymen will appear as a bulging bluish membrane. Why it will appear as bluish? Because the blood is collected behind, which will make it appear bluish. Then you also do a per rectal examination to know about the genitalia. You can palpate the genital organs per rectally also, particularly if the depth of the vagina is not there or if there is a obstruct imperforate hymen. You can do a per rectal examination to know about the genital organs. And investigations, what investigations you will do? Ultrasonogram is extremely important, particularly ultrasonogram of the pelvis. It will tell you about whether, basically it will tell you at one go whether uterus and vagina are present or absent, whether ovary is present or absent. Okay, if ovary is present, whether Graafian follicular development is present in the ovary or not. Yes. Then estimate the hormones, serum FSH, estradiol, prolactin, androgens, etc. Then you do a radiology, X-rays for bone age. Because many times the mothers may not be knowing the actual age of the child. They may give you an idea vaguely, they may say 15 years, 16 years, but actually the child may be only 12 or 13 years, and then there's no point in investigating and treating this child, isn't it? You can still some time is there to wait. So you can assure the mother and send her home. So like that, first establish the bone age, then X-ray skull for any pituitary macroadenoma or empty cell Tarsica syndrome, etc. X-ray chest to look for any pulmonary tuberculosis because associated genital tract tuberculosis may be present. One of the important investigations is genetic karyotyping, chromosomal analysis to know what is the chromosomes, what is the sex chromosome composition, thyroid profile to know any thyroid abnormalities, renal function tests to know any other associated conditions. So all the investigations you will do, you have investigated, then you will come to a conclusion as to the cause for the primary amenorrhea, and you will treat the patient according to the etiology. So in my next class, I will talk about the various etiological conditions. All the etiological conditions I have enumerated, and some of these common conditions I will talk to you in detail. Today there's no time, so I will continue this class on the next Monday. Anything you want to ask me, you can ask me. Or should I ask you questions? I'll give you 2 minutes time, you can ask. Okay, if you don't have anything, okay, I'll end the class.